Hello humans! Today I wanted to talk about this guy right here, which I recently picked up from a local hunting supply store. As you can see, this is a Kershaw. This is the iridium, named after a radioactive alloy, which is always a good start. It is designed in the USA, which means absolutely nothing, and made in China. The outside of the packaging has our Proposition 65 warning on it. Probably, I don't know. Means fucking nothing, but there you go. This will cause you cancer if you live in California. Box itself is simple cardboard, which I like. Ooh. Means absolutely nothing, but I like having just a little bit of extra rigidity in the way that they did this box. Again, makes absolutely no difference, but I do like those little touches every so often, even on something relatively inexpensive like this. Alright, and we have our standard dog poo bag, perfect for all of your dog poo. And here we have it. Alright. Okay, that is nice. It's got a little bit of a stiff detent. Man, that's pretty. It's picking up my fingerprints right away, though. Alright, so, basic outline. Proceeds to bump the table. Basic outline, it's a crossbar locking knife with aluminum scales. It has this, I'm assuming this is anodized or coated aluminum backspacer in this nice orangey bronze color. It has a fairly deep carry pocket clip, which is reversible. Good. This is anytime anything has a what's it called, ambidextrous lock on it, it needs to have either a reversible pocket clip or no pocket clip. And I personally prefer a reversible pocket clip because I do like carrying things in my pocket. Overall, the scales aren't actually quite smooth. There's a very, very small amount of contouring to them, which feels quite nice in the hand. You have this sort of stop. Excuse my dog. You have this sort of stop right here, which makes a very, very natural and comfortable main grip. And then there's a little bit of enough room sort of to get your finger in there, but not really. You can sort of plant it on there if you're doing like detail work. But overall, you don't quite have enough space to sort of comfortably grab onto it right there. You have your three completely necessary jumps on the back of the spine, which are doing probably about nothing for you. You have this nice little swedge section up here, which is nice. Like, it's right in that spot in the cutting path where if you're like bearing down on material, it is going to lower a little bit of drag. I don't know how much. It doesn't seem like it'd be tons, but visually it adds... Wow, my dog's making a lot of noise. Visually, it adds quite a bit of interest to it, and it helps this sort of long drop point shape just look that extra little bit nicer, which personally I quite like. It has D2 blade steel, which is pretty meh, especially at, you know, 175 Canadian dollars. It could serve for an upgrade, but it's not the end of the world. The action is immediately very, very flicky. Is it running on? Hold up. Feels like... actually can't quite tell. It's running on bearings or washers. I think it might be washers, just from the looks of it. But it feels super, super smooth for washers. Yeah. It's looking like washers. It's not feeling like washers. Whichever one it is, there'll be a little thing on the screen that says it has full length. Actually, are they full length? Yeah. Again with the flashlight, gotta get in there and take a look. Yeah, it's got full length liners on the inside, just probably because it makes life easier on the machining front. Fair enough. It's got aluminum scales over that, which I quite like, and having the liners and the scales be separate is going to help the aftermarketing world, and it also means that you can have space to put the springs, so the springs aren't on the inside, which is, you know, always a nice thing. What is it that I'm noticing? Yeah, right there. So, because, you know, it's using the crossbar lock as the detent, it needs a space to sort of bounce into that detent. And this is one of the heavier ones that I've built. Like, you can see how much it's kicking out the blade there. And that's just by pulling back on it. You can see it sort of does it in two stages. It lets go of the blade and then do it fast enough. You get here, and then there's a point where it actually pushes the blade out a little bit more. Just trying to see if yeah, right there. So from like here out, it just pushes the blade all on its own, which is interesting. Action-wise, this is actually incredibly nice. Super addictive action. Aesthetically, it's got this sort of satin blade to it, which I quite like personally. I think that it doesn't do much to hide scratches, but it does end up looking really good with wear, in my opinion. You know, I like it more than a stone wash, but less. Well, actually, I don't think there's anything I like it less than. This might be my favorite. Depends on the stone wash. Well, it's right up there with the stone wash for me personally. It has stop pin right here at the back of the travel. In the hand, it's actually quite comfortable. I'm noticing the pocket clip a little bit, but not, like, I have to be bearing down pretty hard for it to become uncomfortable. As you can see, it's got that really aggressive swoop to it, which normally is quite uncomfortable, but I think just because of how relatively narrow the handle is, it's fitting quite nicely in my hand. Like, if I change my grip a little bit, yeah, I'll notice it more or less in some places, but honestly, the thing that I'm noticing the most is actually the corners. I wish that they'd knock them down a little bit more, but it is quite nice. The blade shape is one of my absolute favorite blade shapes. It has a little bit of a straight section, which is nice for push cuts, stuff like that, and then a lot of belly, which I quite like. Drop point, which not my favorite, but again, like, this just looks so nice. Oh man. And the lanyard, I don't know, pill back there is, I like having the orange, I like having the pop of color on the back spacer. I like having a lanyard space because if you want a lanyard, it's nice. I think this knife here is actually big enough that a lanyard is completely and utterly unnecessary, but that's just my opinion. Overall size, here it is next to the Wee Banter and the Civivi Chevalier. So as you can see, in terms of actual like usable handle space, it is almost identical to the Civivi. It is just quite a bit bigger than the Wee Banter, but the blade is ever so slightly longer than the Civivi. Not by tons, but just a little bit longer, which is nice. And then here it is next to the Buck 110. As you can see, it is quite a bit smaller than the Buck 110, which definitely puts it right sort of in that medium knife size. And then here it is next to a Zippo. In terms of its thickness, it is very similar to the thickness of a Zippo, as you can see right there, which means it's going to be quite a bit thinner than the 110, but let's give it a check anyway. Yeah, as you can see, it is quite a bit thinner than the 110. Oh man, that action is really nice. Out of the box, I would actually put this on par with my Kaiser Escort, which has had its time to break in, and I've adjusted the spring tension and done that whole thing on. The tension feels exactly where I want it to be. It is a little bit different getting used to the fact that I have to hold the lock bar back fully until it completely closes, but it's really not that bad. And like, you just saw me fail it, but it's not easy to fail, but it's not necessarily difficult to fail either. Out of the box, let's see what Kershaw's doing with their edges nowadays. So, yeah, that is a very, very nice edge. So, yeah, so the big thing with the waviness, what you're actually showing off is how refined the edge is, how little, like how few micro serrations there are on the edge. And as you can see, it is doing a very, very good job. It is a little bit thicker behind the edge. I don't even think it's thicker behind the edge. I think just the final angle is a little bit, it's a little bit less, it's a little bit of a higher angle than you normally see on sort of a final edge, which is what's causing that very, very small amount of rolling. But if you put your own edge on it, or even like that, it feels super, super good cutting through paper. So I don't think you need to adjust it, but if you wanted a result more similar to something like a Wii knife, you could just put a slightly less aggressive or more aggressive angle on there and you'd be completely and utterly done. Oh yeah, this is nice. So at 175 bucks Canadian, that's putting it right in that same sort of playing field as the Kaiser Escort or even some of the less expensive Benchmades in that zone. I think that the action is significantly better than any Benchmade I've handled. I think it's right on par with the Kaisers after you finish playing with your Kaiser knife. So for me personally, I would actually put this sort of in that same field, and you're paying more for a little bit less. And what I mean by that is the Kaiser that I have, and most of the Kaisers with the crossbar locks that I have played with personally, which is what I can speak to, are in 154 cm. Great steel. However, its advantage compared to D2 is that it is stainless. It's not quite as tough, not quite as edge retention-y, but it is stainless. It's a better rounded steel. D2 is what is considered a semi-stainless steel, and it will hold out against stains a little bit. It's not, I wouldn't describe it as being good at holding out against stains. Like, I work in a lot of hot environments. I work as a welder, peep the welding burns, and working as a blacksmith and working as a welder, what I have noticed with this knife is that, or with D2 in particular, is that it will rust in the pocket with sweat a lot more readily than it will with other things. Like, I've put my D2 blades to work up against fruits. I've put my D2 blades like opening oranges, acidic things. And the thing that really gets to it is that prolonged exposure to sweat in a hot environment, which for me, it's not the end of the world, right? I just need to spend a little bit more time cleaning it, making sure I take the rust off. It is not by any means the end of the world, but it can be a little bit more maintenance. And the benefit that you're getting is more edge retention, which is a trade I will make every day of the week. But it is definitely a less well-rounded steel. It's going to need a little bit more work. And if I'm paying around the same, I want a steel that is around the same. And to me personally, D2 does not feel like it is around the same. It's a great steel, but I feel like this would serve really, really well being about $25 less expensive as a result. The aluminum feels really, really nice. It's got to be vapor or fine bead blasted. There's just a very, very small amount of texture, but it's not like, no milling, nothing like that. Just a very, very tiny amount of powdering almost, which I quite like. The overall knife, I think it is very recommendable. I think that for this blade shape, you're going to be able to get a lot of work done, which I like. Overall, I would say, yeah, this is something I would recommend picking up. I think it'd make a great EDC. I think that it would make a great sort of semi-tactical knife if you're used to this type of blade shape and have trained with it. Overall, I like it. I think that if you're in the market for a knife like this, pick one up. It is super, super fun. Stay safe and have fun out there. Peace.